What's up guys, this is Mod Addict, and guess what? I'm gonna show you more units from Radious mod, but this time we're gonna see the one and the only faction of Dwarfs. From all these years playing Warhammer Total War games, I realized lots of people like this faction, probably based on how you play this game. It's a really nice faction to start getting to know the game, easy mechanics to handle. The only thing that upsets us, obviously, we haven't had a normal expansion for the Dwarves, but hopefully sooner or later it's gonna come with the new DLC. But for now, I present you the new units that comes with Radious mod. Total of 18 units, 11 infantry and 7 missile infantry units. Unfortunately, no artillery or no cavalry units comes from Radious mod, but still, I think you're gonna like these units. Some of them are very useful from the beginning of your campaign, and you're gonna see why. But before we start this video, can I ask you to subscribe for my channel if you like this content? And if you really like this video, hit the like button. It's gonna really help me. I'm trying to monetize this channel, so I need 1,000 subscribers. I know it's still a long way to go, but I'm sure with your help I can make it. I'm sure you guys want to see those units, so I'm not gonna be keeping you waiting, and let's begin. And as usual, we're starting this mod with the infantry unit, and the first one is the Dwarf warriors with long axes. Honestly guys, I think this is the most useful unit for Dawi from Radious mod that you can get. A tier 1 anti-large infantry. The only units that can deal with large enemies if you're playing as Dawi is either slayers or some artillery pieces, and you don't get them until the mid game. However, these units you can get from a tier 1 barracks, and they're all you need to deal with enemies' large units from the beginning of the game to the mid of the game. Even the late campaigns, these units get buffs from regular Dwarf warriors. They can be even stronger. They also get all the good abilities that the anti-large units get. They charge defense and they charge reflection. They have a good armor, and it's all you need to deal with the large entities. So I'm sure you're gonna find this unit very useful in your next playthrough as Dwarfs. You're gonna be using this Radious mod. Next we got the Ironhammer warriors. The tier 2 unit with nice shields, some good missile resistance. They have thunder armor ability to reduce enemies' armor, so that kind of makes them armor piercing. Definitely will be helpful if you're using some units that doesn't have the armor piercing damage. So these guys are nice frontline for your army. They got the expert charge defense, so only the very large entities will be able to move their lines. A very decent unit for tier 2. That's definitely going to be useful throughout the mid of your campaign. Third on the list we have the Gold Shield Warriors. As the name says, this unit has a golden shields with some red armor. Another one great frontline unit with the magical attacks to do better against demons or undead. Also they got a nice fire resistance, lots of armor, and obviously shields to protect them from enemies' missiles. Fourth on the list we have the Dragon Company. Dwarves that slay the small dragon and use its head and skin as their cloak. Badass looking units, they do fire attacks and plus the armor piercing with their huge axes. They're immune to psychology and have perfect vigor. This is some next level units for your front lines again. Fifth on the list is the Stormbreakers. That's basically your miners plus 2. This is the tier 3 unit who has the same missile attack as the miners, which deals more damage, and they have much more ammunition. And their missile attack has a burned ability which reduces the enemy's resistance to fire and leadership. Also, if they have to fight in melee, they do armor piercing damage, so very good unit. Have at least few of them in your army just for their missile attacks, which will disrupt the enemy's formations. Great Beards, that's your melee expert unit with magical attacks who encourages other units, so increase everyone's leadership who stands around them. They're immune to psychology, really good defense stats, and as the unit title says, they have the great beards. And what do we have here? More frontline infantry. This one is hammerers with shield, almost similar version as the regular hammerers with two-handed maces. This is with one-handed mace and shield. They have magical attacks, have a nice bonus versus infantry, expert at charge defense, so only entities that's gonna be able to move them is the very large enemies. Other than that, that's your infantry killer who are well protected. Even though they have like this amazing looking shields, it's considered as a bronze shield, so only 30% missile block chance. But definitely a nice variant for your hammer unit. Finally, dwarves that don't use the shields. That's another variant for the slayers. Those are the diamond slayers. They have the armor sundering and magical attacks. Bonus versus large. So basically that's another great anti-large unit that you can hire. They definitely do more damage than the dwarf warriors from tier 1 that I showed you at the beginning, but the problem is, as all the slayers, they don't have armor, so they can be a really good target for the enemy's ranged units, so you have to be mindful of that. But other than that, they have a charge defense against large enemies. As all the slayers, they're unbreakable. They have a charge reflection, death blow, small 5% physical resistance, and actually a really good missile resistance of 30%. But still, I wouldn't count on that, putting them against the army that relies on archers a lot, or like any type of ranged units. Definitely a damage dealer, but be careful using them, for example, if you're playing against any kind of elves. Something is more armored. We have iron breakers with great weapons. Another version, the vanilla game had iron breakers with one-handed weapon and shield. This one uses the great axe. Considers as an anti-large unit. Has a discourage ability on its melee attack, which reduces the enemy's leadership and melee attacks. A lot of armor, like a lot of armor. Has a high leadership, so this unit is almost unbreakable. They're immune to psychology, charge against large enemies. If you don't want to use the slayers that I showed you before, definitely use these guys. They're not really scared of enemies' missiles, and they can do tons of damage against armor large entities because these guys also deal armor piercing damage. And next we have another slayer like unit, grungy berserkers. You can tell them it's just the slayers but with armor, so they have a better survivability. They have a frostbite attacks, which reduces the enemy's speed, melee defense and attack. They also got the frenzy ability, which increases their damage when they're fighting. They cause fear, are experts at charge defense. This type of slayers are the best used against infantry, and due to their armor, they're lacking the unbreakable ability, so this unit can rout. Like whenever the shit gets down, they have a high leadership, almost unbreakable, can be even higher, but this unit can rout, so just keep in mind. It might be useful or not as useful, depends on the situation, because like if they're gonna rout, there's still some units left. Eventually they will get back, you can use them to fight again, so it can be useful. They have a nice melee defense for dual weapon type of unit. Can be buffed with the same technology that buffs slayers, same with like skills and stuff at the lore's unit tree. So yeah, a very nice unit. Another type of berserkers units, those are Grimnir berserkers. That's your anti-large version. Same slayer-like units with high armor, with frostbite ability, and the bonus versus large. They also has the frenzy ability and causes fear, has a charge reflection and expert charge defense. A top unit to do the most damage against large entities, whoever you're fighting against. They also get buffs from the usual slayer buffs from the campaign. Even for the armor, they have a nice speed and charge bonus. So better use them to charge at the flanks of your enemies or at the backs, But if you want to put them straight against the large entities, like head to head, they're gonna do well in that situation too. So don't be scared to use them everywhere you want. And finally, going to my favorite type of units, the ranged units. We're starting with the Dark Bird Axe Throwers. You can hardly say that this is the typical ranged unit because they throw axes. So it's a close quarter infantry, they consider to be. They don't have a large range, but the axes that they throw are anti-large and armor piercing. They're decent in melee whenever they will be engaged in. Can do well against the same tier enemies that they're going to be facing. It's a well-balanced unit for your army. And switching to the actual ranged units, we have the Dwarf Scouts variant that uses crossbows. But very interesting, their crossbows are not armor piercing, that like the most crossbows in the game, and they have a extra bonus versus infantry, both for their melee and range attacks. They can use smoke bombs to reduce the enemy speed. They have Vanguard deployment and bronze shields, so I think the best way to use them is just against the enemy's missile units. For example, they're always behind their front lines, shooting at your favorite unit. So these guys, you can put them somewhere in the forest and just wait until your melee units will be engaged, and then just start shooting at the enemy's missile units. I'm sure they will win the fight because of they have silver shields. Silver shields provide 55% of the missile block, so they're definitely gonna win this battle. And for those who likes the gunpowder ranged units, I provide you with the Halhane Gunners. Tier 3 ranged unit with the rifles that does armor piercing damage. As most of the ranged units for the Dawi, they're all decent at their melee, not the best, but can stand for their own, have nice armors. Bronze shields, definitely not that scared of the enemy's ranged units because of that. Overall, a better version of the Thunderers. And here's the Mountain Rangers. Very interesting type of ranged units. This one used the poison attacks both for melee and ranged. Even though they have crossbows, it's not armor piercing. They have Vanguard deployment and a Shredder ability just to help them move better at the certain terrains. A very interesting unit to use. So basically, because of the poison reduces the enemy speed and damage capabilities, so can be used good against cavalry, like the charging cavalry at your units to reduce their speed. Can be used in a pair with some melee units to support them. I think because of their poison attacks, this unit is just best used as support to whoever your armies are fighting with. They can be both helpful against ranged units and melee units, so it's a very nice addition to your army. And if you like the look of the previous unit, this is the Underwear Expeditionary Force. They look like the Rangers, but who used guns. In this case, armor-piercing rifles, which also discourages enemies. As the previous unit, they use two-handed axe, which is armor piercing, so they can do good in the melee as well. This unit needs to be placed near some other units. I would prefer you guys to put them near your infantry because they have encourage ability, which increases your friendly unit's leadership, and none of your enemies will be able to withstand this fighting force. And we're almost at the end, just 2 more units left. The almost last ones are Sons of Uluk, a badass looking gunpowder missile infantry. Their rifles are armor piercing and discouraging. They use two-handed axes which are armor piercing, have tons of armor, lots of leadership, and good melee stats to deal with the regular infantry, like in melee if they need to get into close combat. And for the last one is the Garrison Dwarfs. Very similar stats as the previous unit, but this one uses crossbows. And I don't know why, but all the new units that's been added with the crossbows don't have the armor piercing damage. Well, these guys have a bonus versus infantry if they're fighting in a melee. They have a really nice looking two-hand mace weapon, which is not armor piercing as well. Well, I understand, like, their main job is just to do damage from afar, not to be engaged in melee, but I guess the type of crossbows they use, because all the crossbow units for the Dawi have a nice range of 175, and I would assume that crossbows, for example, the Dark Elves use, it's their range is about 150, so, but it's armor piercing, so I guess it's just for the balancing purposes. But definitely, all these units can be buffed with your technology and the Lord's skill tree. So all of these units can be a very deadly force to deal with. And guys, just take a moment, just enjoy how this amazing unit look like with their armor, their weapon. This guys has nice rifles. Just amazing. It's like this unit is meant to fight on the front lines, but not really, you know. It's really nice how they made them look. And that was all the new units that's been added with the Radious mod for the Dawi faction. You can hire them at any Dwarfs faction that's available in this game. I think it's a really good addition for your army compositions. I know that Dwarves still need probably some type of cavalry, but they didn't get it with this mod. They just got some extra frontline units who can hold on their own and some new ranged units. But I think it's a really good versatility that you might find very useful, especially the Dwarf Warriors with long access. This is a definitely useful unit for your start of the game until you get to the top units such as Slayers or like some cannons that you can use to do more damage against large entities. But other than that, I really like the new units for the Dao faction. I think it's well balanced, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. Just write down in the comments below what you think about these units and if you're gonna be using them, and what faction would you like to see next that I cover for the Radious mod. It was Mod Addict with you guys, and have a nice day.